It's going to be the critique.
Okay.
Is everyone ready? A question that goes unanswered in this debate is, what does the alternative do? How does it solve? It does nothing. They conceded this in cross-sects multiple times that it does nothing for you. Voting for the negative and choosing the alternative does nothing. There's it's a better chance to go for the per. Multiple signs of resistance. I'll get to that in a little bit. Extend Bay, that shamanism extends outside of capitalism. That means that there's no link to the commodification link. They made a concession that goes to the cost of, that's going to cost them the round today. They said that the ballot is inevitably be co-opted by neoliberalism, which means that voting negative does nothing to resolve this co-option. This means that their disaster permutation goes away because it's also a disaster alternative. Even if you don't buy that we are ahead on the question of co-option, their answer to the Bay was little too late. Our Bay evidence was very specific about how the image of neoliberalism are unable to be co-opted by neoliberalism orders because the cultural divide in shamanism has with capitalism. Neo-shamanism poses all seriousness that another magic may exist, an effective mode of consciousness that cannot be hexed by a sign of commodity. That's our Bay evidence. This means that the image we produce is unco-optable because we are placing truth in a form of magic that shamanism proposes. They never gave a warrant as to why it is not an authentic representation of shamanism. This is the we'll get to that argument in a little bit. The rest of that argument. That Bay evidence, indicates that capitalism cannot absorb neo-shamanism because historically it has not been able to absorb neo-shamanism. Instead, it has been tried to create a war against shamanism because shamanism is something that exists outside of capitalism, something that it cannot absorb because capitalism uses symbols to manipulate individuals, where shamanism has another form of representation of these symbols. Let's go. They say that we waste your time, but they have no impact to this. There's no impact to why hearing the act for 9 minutes isn't a bad thing. It's a form of alternative medicine to open up the discussion that there is something possible, something outside the medical institution. They say that images and that we're not authentic shamanism, but they attempt to sell you an anti-political, anti-politics as well. This is no different from Jay-Z selling you Occupy shirts in an attempt to
it's a co-option of anti-capitalist politics.
It's a co-option of anti-capitalist politics. They say that a risk of that voting act is a risk that the applicants absorb, but our Bay evidence says that CAP uses symbols to manipulate co-op, but historically it cannot manipulate, it cannot co-opt shamanism because it's an authentic, something real outside of capitalism. And then they once again say that we waste 9 minutes of your time. This is not true. And then they say that. And then they say that the only thing that they have to win is that the app gets co-opted to neoliberalism. This is the only link that they have in this debate, and I think we did a pretty good articulation of what the Bay evidence says, that it cannot be co-opted. This is the only link that they have in this debate. Look to the Bay evidence to answer this. This is the only link they have in this debate. They say that we do not that we don't answer neoliberalism bad, but extend our Robinson evidence that goes conceded in this debate that death is the first exclusionary economy, the type of economy that excludes other people and marginalizes them between the lines of gender, gender, class, and racism. The critique, the question about the critiques, alternative solvency, it's still a question that goes unanswered.
Explain how the app solves that.
The app solves that because it allows us to have something different from the status quo, something that is actually something that separates our relationship to death, and allows us to view death in a different way, allows us to have a different representation of death, not something that is just inevitable and forever, not something that you must try to resist at all costs, but something that can be celebrated and be viewed in different ways. Other cultures see death in a different than what we do, and I think the 1AC does a great job in creating this discussion that there's another type of relationship to death, something different from the Western notion of death. They say that we don't get access to shamanism because we might be a fake type of images of shamanism, but we think that the 1AC does a great job in trying to open up discussions about shamanism and alternative medical practices. Also, how can they know that we are afraid of shamanism? We have presented shamanism in this debate because we think that alternative medicines is something that should be looked towards in this debate, specifically alternative medicine, medical practices that allow a community and allow a family to be in a discussion revolving around the relationship to death. They say that the tries to commodify the ballot, but they do this specifically when they try to do a try or die extinction scenario and trying to get you to vote negative because it is the biggest yardstick in this debate because you have to vote negative. If not, you're going to try or die. But we say that is about the discussion that has been created in this debate. They say that vote negative because it allows, because individualism is bad, and this allows for other types of neoliberalism. But Cinna Robinson says it's pretty great about this, how excluding the death from our social sphere is the first dichotomy that has caused the exclusionary dichotomies towards gender, class, and racism. They say, let's go to the perm. The other thing that they have on the perm is that it's countercultural and it has a possibility of being co-opted, but I think we've answered this above multiple times on how it cannot be co-opted and how historically shamanism was not being able to co-opt, cannot be able to co-opt. Instead, capitalist structures have tried to wage war against it because they cannot co-opt. It's this representation towards that. They say that the alternative, you're going to want to look at the perm because it allows for multiple resistance, both the alternative relationship and the affirmative. It allows for multiple resistance to capitalism. It allows for a shamanistic outside relationship to death to net benefit.
The new relationship.
It's the new relationship to death. Look towards the perm.